Hi everybody! So for my final project, I built a Euclidean sequencer, which generates Euclidean rhythms. So what are Euclidean rhythms? In the early 2000s, there was this physicist, and he was working on a particle accelerator. And one of the problems that he ran into was that he had to evenly space a certain number of events over a certain number of slots. So for instance, the example that we see here, he had to evenly space 5 events over 13 slots, where each event is represented by a 1 and each empty slot is represented by a 0. So in order to solve this problem of evenly spacing these events, he comes up with this algorithm. And it's based on the Euclidean algorithm, which Euclid came up with in order to find the greatest common divisor of two numbers. So he uses this algorithm, and at the bottom here we can see that he generates this sequence of 1s and 0s where the 1s are as evenly spaced out as possible over these 13 slots. Several years after he publishes this paper, a student at McGill getting his doctorate degree in music reads this paper and realizes that we can use this for music. If we think of the slots as the number of beats in a measure and as the 1s or the events in these slots as hits in this beat. And so he did this whole paper on it, and he found that all these different examples in world music and rock and roll, where there are these Euclidean rhythms, these evenly spaced rhythms. So going to this subpatcher that I've built, we can see how this algorithm works. So like this example before, here we have 5 events being spaced over a sequence of 13. So if we put this into this algorithm here, 5 events over 13 slots, we end up with the same pattern down here as Brooklyn did. So we can do this with anything. I limited it to be up to 16 slots, so we can say try and evenly space 4 hits over 16 slots. We'll obviously end up with 1 followed by 3 zeros repeated 4 times. So if we take this sequence of 1s and 0s, plug it into something like the drum machine project, then we end up with a sequencer. So this is my sequencer. It can have up to 4 tracks at a time, and each track can have up to 16 steps within it. And as you increase the number of hits within it, you can see how these hits are evenly distributed over these steps. So for instance, like we said before, if we distribute 4 hits over 16 steps, we end up with a 1 followed by 3 zeros, where each 1 is a lit up toggle and each 0 is a dark toggle. So if we play with this, we can turn it on. We can select the note that it's playing. Another handy feature is that we can rotate this. So as the rotation goes up, you can see it switching the starting point of where we begin the sequence. We can turn on multiple at a time. Pick something random. I'm sure it'll sound really cacophonous and beautiful. There's also this reverse function. So say we try and reverse this beginning one, it'll basically play the sequence backwards. So in addition to being able to rotate the sequence and start it in a new spot, we can play it backwards. So if we play with a couple of these, oh, I forgot to turn it on. There's also a sync button, which will start all of these at the same current beat. So even though the tempo is the same for all of them, they all have different numbers of beats, so they end up getting off. So if you hit the sync button, they'll all begin on beat 1. All right, and that's it.